Hey, good evening, friends. It's Doug, and
For Towers Films.
oh, listen, we have got something. We had to get the coffee, and we need to sit down and have a chat here. Okay, something came across our desk, and we thought we'd sit down and have a discussion about it.
hmm
It's the
Well, what we should preface is this can be a very controversial topic.
yes.
There's a lot of people who have very strong views either way.
Mm-hmm.
And while we welcome
Yes.
all views and stuff, we don't want to, say people aren't entitled to their views or whatever. We don't. If we do get more than one person talking about their views on the topic, we want to remain respectful about it.
So,
and at least listen to each other.
As my lovely co-host has said, this is a safe space for everyone to share their views and opinions.
Right.
So we saw this and we thought we had to sit down and discuss this with you guys. Okay, it's the current bill that's being trying to be passed in the Arizona.
Yeah, it's been introduced.
Okay.
In Arizona.
I was absolutely staggered when you told me this.
Well, you have to tell them what the bill is.
If
you haven't watched the
if you didn't tune
actual podcast.
So basically, the bill is trying to tell women in Arizona that if you're pregnant,
right,
and you try to abort that child
under specific
circumstances.
So, like, for example, if they know, there's tests sometimes doctors can do that can determine.
Let me just turn comments on here.
If there is, for example, the potential for the baby to have Down syndrome,
of course,
or some other kind of developmental problem.
Of course. Yeah.
That if a woman decides at a certain point to abort the baby,
okay.
Well, the bill is basically saying that no, it would actually be illegal for them to do that for that reason. Plus, they're also introducing into this bill that they want to give the fetus full human rights. So, same rights the mother would have, what you have, those who live in Arizona have, the baby would also have. So, it would, in effect, become illegal to actually abort any baby. So, and the mother could actually be charged with of the crime, potentially felony like manslaughter, and also that any, say, doctors or hospitals or even universities, because as you know, a lot of them will do medical procedures, could also be charged with a crime and have funding and stuff pulled as well if for that. Now, let's say it has not passed into law at this point. It's a bill that has to pass through many readings and things, but we're just debating whether or not really should government have any kind of say in your choice of being able for your own health.
Personally, myself, I say no. I say no in this aspect. That you shouldn't be able to take that power from somebody,
right,
to decide what happens to their body.
Right.
No one has that choice except that individual.
Right.
So by telling a woman that, say, quote unquote, has been raped.
Right.
Oh, sorry, Denise, you cannot abort that child. Because if you do, we'll send you to jail.
To prison for it, yes.
And you must...
And make the trauma even worse.
And, and you have to see that child to term.
Right. But then you can give it up for adoption.
Like, that's what staggers my head. What? The woman's, suffered the worst indignity, and you are going to force her to go through it even longer and excuse me, and have to deal with the physiological changes that her body is going to go through.
What's childbirth?
What's
there's risk associated with that as well. So it's not like it's 9 months of sunshine and roses.
No.
I mean, anyone who's been pregnant can tell you that.
No.
You know, and then even if the healthiest woman could have
of
complications.
Of course.
So they'd have to go through all that, then childbirth, and what if they can't do it the normal way and have to do a C-section or something like that? So it's even more traumatic, and you have to heal, and I mean it's a lot. I mean, the thing is, it's different if you choose to have this baby.
Of course.
You know, then fine. I mean, that should be their choice, whether they want to have the baby and then give it up, or keep it, or whatever. I mean, but the point is the choice being taken from them, or they're trying to take it away. I mean, they're not the only state by any means that has done that. Now, some, it's pretty much settled. Like, they're not going to kind of reopen that kind of, it's really a can of worms.
Well, that's what it is,
really. I mean, here, being in Canada, it had been a debate here too. So, I mean, it's not like
it has.
It hasn't. For a long time, it went really back and forth. And there's a lot of people opposed to it, a lot of people for it, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it came down to really more people are for women being able to choose here than not. So it's basically, it's law here that women can do it if they want to, up to a certain point in the pregnancy. I mean, I forget where it is. It's not past that. So you can't get it past a certain point, but which, I mean, makes sense, because I mean, there really should be a short window. I mean, you know, because one, it actually can become dangerous at a certain stage, but so that's kind of a moot point in a way here now. Like a lot of with elections and things, they won't even touch it, because they know people do not want this reopened here.
Yeah, because it's a hot button topic.
Oh, sure it is. It should, but it's there's so many more on the side of choice here.
That's true.
Not. So
that's true.
That's one of the reasons it's not really open up here again.
No.
But I do know it's still very much open in the States, because here it's federally mandated.
Yeah.
It's not by each province.
No.
Where I think it's different states. It's per state what they want to do. So.
And if any of our American viewers could let us know, is this correct? Is it?
I do believe it is, because it's an Arizona bill. It will only affect Arizona, but I mean, I have heard over the years different other states introducing similar bills.
Okay.
You know, and either they've been shot down or they're still going through readings and stuff. So I mean, they're up in, even in the last few years, I've heard a few states introducing bills like that, similar to it.
I think, I'm going to put it out there. I think women should have physical autonomy and be able to make the choice, one way or another, what happens.
Right, to their own body.
To their own body. And I'm also going to put it out there, if the government is going to try and make arbitrary decisions on what happens to a woman's body, then guess what? Flip it on over to the other side of the gender spectrum, to the men, and say, okay, buddy, guess what? By the age of 40, if you haven't had any kids,
you can't have any kids.
You can't have any kids.
Because as you know, I mean, if you know anything about biology, you do know that over a certain age, I mean, we know men can have kids pretty much until they die.
Of course.
However, should they? Because scientists have said, and doctors have said, that the older a man gets, the less viable his sperm becomes.
Yes.
So it really becomes that there's higher chances of birth defects from an older father. So if you think about it that way, if you want to put restrictions on what a woman could do with her own health and her own body, then you should do the same with a man and say, well, you can have, like, physically, sure, you can have kids forever, but no, because you're actually risking having a child that can have serious health issues, and or maybe not even be able to be born, because even within in vitro, that the developmental issues, they just cannot survive outside the body. Well, you know, after the specific age, well, you can't have kids anymore. You're cut off, literally, kind of thing. I mean, but they won't do that because most of the time men have never had to fight for their own health rights, and that's really not right because women have, and that's not really fair, you know, or right.
And really, I agree with you on that. I think men would have a broader understanding if we
were the ones getting pregnant. I bet you would not have that debate.
No.
It wouldn't be these laws being brought up.
If we had to fight to have our own biological autonomy,
right?
You know,
yeah.
But because where we fell on the gender slide, we ended up on the opposing side of the fence, you know.
Right.
But sorry, if they're gonna do it to you, they need to do it to me.
You would think.
You know.
You would think. I mean, just even to get the idea.
Oh.
If you think of that way, that it's a sense. It's a sense of control.
Of course, it is.
The fact of, you know, and a lot of it. I don't know if all of the people who are say pro-life are religious. I mean, you can't say that. No. You know, it could just be that's they believe. They don't believe in abortion. It may have nothing to do with religion.
Of
course. I find that a lot of it does. A lot of people who are, I mean, I've seen them even on my Facebook page, who are pro-life and don't believe in any kind of abortion for any reason.
Yeah.
Or tend to be more religious and primarily Christian, but you know, other religions as well. Yes. But the ones who I guess the most outspoken that I've seen have most been Christians. So
that's true.
You know, and that's fine if that's belief.
Of course.
And that's fine if you don't agree with abortion for you or whatever and that kind of thing. However, the thing is, does that really give you the right if other people don't believe the way you do? To impose your belief system on them.
No, it does not.
You know, like I guess that's really where I guess for a lot of people have trouble with it.
Yeah, of course.
Is because so many people have believed so staunchly that this is a life, that this is a soul. They just have as much right as anybody does to live, and it's fine if that's what you believe. You have the right to believe that way.
Of course.
So do they. They have a right to believe this is just a bunch of cells.
Yeah. And
this isn't even a baby yet.
And
you know, that doesn't have a heartbeat. I mean, we're talking before there's heartbeat or the brain activity or anything like that. Because they get detected pretty early on now.
True.
You know, and there are people who believe this.
Yes.
That this is not a life yet.
Yeah.
And if for whatever reason, even if they can detect, because we have to be a little bit further along,
of course,
to detect any kind of birth defects potential. You know, but isn't that they're also the right
of course
to believe that and say, is it really a good thing to go through 9 months, give birth, and this child may not even live that long, and you could potentially be putting this child through a lot of suffering if they're born, you know, and it'd be very expensive because, I mean, unlike here, I mean, even here, which is a common misconception, a lot of our healthcare, yes, is free, but not everything is.
No,
so
that's true.
You know, we have to pay for our medications,
yes.
And a lot of these children who are severely developmentally disabled or whatever might have to have medications, which the parents have to pay for. A lot of that is through work insurance, things like that, which you'd also have to pay extra for, like whatever the insurance doesn't pay for, that kind of thing. So what if, you know, that's an extra expense, hospital visits. No, we don't typically have to pay out of pocket for that. It's usually from taxes here. But like we said, not everything is. So, But what if you are in the States? All that you have to pay up front.
Of course.
I mean, yes, I know there's insurance and like Medicare and stuff too, but you pay premiums and stuff for it. But you know, don't they also have the right to think the way they do?
Of course they do.
If you don't want them imposing, say, their thoughts on you, why is it okay to push, say, your beliefs on them in a way, you know?
Okay. I'm gonna share my position.
Okay.
I do understand the concept of what they're trying to talk about in creationism, that at the moment of conception,
right,
that it's a life.
Right.
And I respect their point of view on that.
Right.
But I'm coming at it from
more scientific,
from the biological standpoint of this is just genetic material.
Right.
You know, the mom, for all intents and purposes, is just a host,
yes, right.
a vessel for that genetic material to grow and form and mature.
Right.
I think it's legally to put such a preposterous mandate on it.
Right.
It's like, how dare you? You know?
True. Yeah. And that's why people do get so passionate about it.
I would love to see someone show me data backing up and validating their position.
Yeah.
It's life.
Well, in a way, can you? Like, I guess it really depends on what your perspective is, because if you go the more like you with maybe the scientific, biological, even doctors, they take their own kind of position in a way. It is cells at first until, and even then, with the heartbeat or whatever, does that make life? You know,
yes.
not all people will think that.
No.
Because technically not sentient at that point, because you don't really have brain activity yet. You have a heartbeat, yes, but that heart is technically being controlled by the mother, because the mother's body is what's actually helping form it, feed it, and grow, and all that kind of stuff. Because the brain activity hasn't got advanced enough yet.
Because it's
rudimentary kind of thing.
Very much so.
It's you know. So even then, would you consider that life though?
No.
A lot of people would not, and some would. Now you could almost argue this point.
Okay.
Say you think it's life at conception, and what makes it life for most people is people have a soul. If you're religious,
okay.
If it's a religious. If you're religious, that's
okay.
Where your thinking is. So if it has a soul.
Okay.
Okay. Some people think at the moment of conception, the soul enters that.
Okay, I've heard this.
Fetus,
yes.
Right.
Okay.
So, well, you could argue that if you have an abortion, it's not the soul you're killing; it's the host. So that what we live in is a shell. This isn't actually us. This is just how we live here amongst the physical world.
Okay.
So, but the soul is part of us, but it's not really us. So,
okay.
Because the soul doesn't get destroyed, it moves on. So, to heaven, some people believe in reincarnation.
True.
It depends on what your religious beliefs are, what happens to
That's true.
You know, or goes to hell or whatever. So, you could argue that if the fetus is aborted, it's not the soul you're actually killing. The soul will move on and be reborn again.
Okay.
It was might have been meant to. And might come back to the same parents later on when maybe they're able to take care of a baby or whatever the case is, or might move on to another family or whatever, you know.
Okay.
So you can almost look at it that way too.
Sure.
That it's just getting rid of what it didn't work for that soul in a way, because you could almost say that's also meant to be. Because why would that come into their head if it wasn't meant to be? You know what I mean? Like there's arguments almost for everything.
Oh, of course.
With that. So, but what makes it, which is right, what's not? Is it right for that person? But it really ultimately comes down to the government is trying to take that choice from the mother.
Yes.
And that's really what it comes down to. It really shouldn't be about what they believe, because they're not the ones having to raise this child.
No.
They're not the ones having to pay for it, take it to, if there's health issues,
of course,
take it to doctor's appointments,
yes.
or special schools, or nurses at your home, or any of that stuff. They're just saying, okay, we don't believe in it, so you're not allowed to have it. You could almost argue the same idea. A lot of people, because guns is a huge thing in the States. To a lesser extent, believe it or not, it is here too.
Yes.
It's not in our Constitution, but there are a lot of people who believe that illegal, if you're good, you're a responsible gun owner. We both, our families have guns, have people in the military and all that. We are not anti-gun.
No.
Or anything like that. We believe if you're responsible with it, you have the proper documentation.
Of course.
Have at it, you know. Yeah. So, but there are people who think just get rid of all guns and all that, and they're entitled to what they think.
For sure.
But you could almost argue the same thing, like those who are so staunch guns, and they think people with they're so against gun laws or even any kind of gun law, that they're saying, well, you're trying to take that away from me. It's my right. It's in the Constitution to have guns, and you're trying to take that from me. So you could almost say, I know it's a life, but I'm trying to make it almost a comparison to people who are really passionate about that. You know, you could say almost the same kind of thing. I mean, that's kind of violating technically a right as it is in your Constitution.
Of course.
To say you can have guns. And now they're trying to have a law or something to say, no, you can't. No. Well, in a way, I don't think it's in your Constitution, but it's almost the same thing. It's your right to health.
Yes.
It's that woman's right.
Of course.
To take care of her health. What if it's detrimental to her health? Should you still have the baby because they believe you should?
No.
You know, I mean, it's a very fine line there. I mean, like, should really anybody, like any kind of government, control whether or not any kind of decision you make of that, especially when it's early on like that.
Oh, for sure. Really, people should have, in this instance, like that genetic autonomy to say, it's my body, my choice.
I agree,
the government should govern the country, govern the state or the province, whatever. It shouldn't. That government should not come into your home and say, "Oh, no, you can't get rid of it."
No, because we don't want you to.
We don't want you to.
We believe that's a life. So no, you're not allowed to have that. You know. I mean, then I have heard this argument too. Some people are saying, "Okay, well, that's all right." Then what about those people who want to do selective abortions to get rid of specific gender? Because that also happens. They will say they want a boy. Oh, it's a girl. Okay, I want to get rid of it. People could say, well, again, isn't that their right to do so? But see, that's where you're also kind of starting to think, well, I don't know about that, because that's kind of, you might think, well, that's almost like a genocide if you think about it, because because they're kind of getting rid of specific gender. They don't. They want a baby. They just might not want that particular baby. So see, there's a bit of a.
It's a slippery slope.
There's a bit of a slippery slope there.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree.
Because
like, I'm wondering what.
But see, I think it's different if it's gender. I mean, I believe people should have the right to choose what they want to do with their own body.
Of course.
Do I think you should be able to have have an abortion just because you don't like the particular gender? Well, no, of course not. That's not great. It's still their choice. It's still their body.
Of course.
But see, you're also thinking this is something it's a health potential problem with this child. Special needs kids are harder to look after. And of course, I mean, they don't always have long lives, and some suffer a lot. And as a parent or whatever, you don't necessarily want to see your child suffer like that, especially if you can avoid it. But it's still up to them.
And on that We do agree. It's up to the women. It should be up to the women, and it should be their choice, and they should be allowed to say what they want to do in their best interest.
Right.
Excuse me. And the government needs to step back.
Stay out of it, basically.
Stay out of it.
Like, what do you need laws with that anyway?
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe you should have a law there if it's, say, an enforced abortion. For example, like, say the woman doesn't want an abortion, or, you know, and maybe, I don't know, for some reason, they're kind of made to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not sure how, like, for whatever, maybe because it's a girl or something or whatever, but like to protect, if they don't want to have one, they can also not have one, or if they do want to have one, like, just so that it's their own choice, not somebody else forcing their own opinion on them, kind of thing. I guess either way,
of course,
you know.
I'd really love to hear what people have to say about this on both sides of the fence.
Yeah, because it is a very, it's a polarizing topic.
Oh, of course.
And you have people very staunchly on either side.
Yes.
Because you do have religious people who are hotly against it, even
people
who are not religious, you know, think, no, you know, you made this baby, you should you know, why? Because it's, say there's a health issue with the child, they should be ended because of it. And then you've got people who are staunchly, it should be up to the woman. It may not be a choice they would make for themselves, but they do think people should have the right to choose for themselves.
Of course.
You know,
and that's,
either way.
See, there's where I land. It should be your choice.
Absolutely, sure, either way.
It's either way. If you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, that's fine.
Don't, yeah.
And the arrogance and pomposity of the government to say, no, you just can.
Don't agree with it, you're not allowed to.
Yeah. Right. And to say, okay, you're going to jail because you killed this child.
Because they see it as murder.
You know?
But the thing is, not everybody does. And I guess that's kind of the point, is some people do not see this as murder or killing a child. I absolutely get there are people who do.
Of course.
You know, of course, you know, but that's, why is their belief system supersede someone else's and their thoughts or beliefs? Okay, well, I believe, say, for example, I believe it's a murder, and I believe it's, you know, life begins conception. So no, you're not allowed. You're murdering a child.
Yes.
Kind of thing. So why is that thought and supersede what the own parent thinks and what they may believe? That's not fair nor right.
No. I think they need to pull this off the table, really, because if they're determined to push this through, I think there's gonna be blowback.
Well, I'm sure there I believe there already is. I haven't heard. I just heard about it. Not though. I'm sure people in Arizona have heard about it more. But I just kind of heard about it Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
And I know there was another bill. I'm not sure if it was Arizona, but that it actually made it to the courts, and the courts overturned it. They appealed it. I mean, that's the point here. I mean, you can introduce as many bills as you want, but I mean, if you take it to court, well, the person's rights are going to supersede whatever other people's beliefs are. So, and a lot of times they are overturned at the court level. So, I mean, I know this is what a lot of the belief is that they are trying to overturn, which is the Supreme Court, Roe versus Wade, which is an abortion bill, or it was a court actual case a long time ago, at the Supreme Court level. So that's really where a lot of the legality for abortions come into play, is for that particular case. So that actually paved the way for abortion to become really legal within the state. So, a lot of people think that there's these bills that are trying to attack this court or this not court order, but this court case, and trying to get it overturned because they think if enough get to the court, especially the Supreme Court, that get turned in the favor of anti-abortion, then they can make it illegal right across the board. But really, is that really your right to make it illegal kind of thing? Just because you don't believe in it, why should someone else be considered a criminal for it? Exactly. But again, it's more of a control thing. It's putting your own beliefs on someone else.
Yes.
Because of what you believe. You absolutely have every right to believe what everyone believes.
For sure.
So do they.
Exactly. There should be a equilibrium achieved.
Right.
There should be a give and take for sure, and I wholeheartedly feel that it has to happen, and it needs to happen, but it's not happened yet.
No, well, so that's the thing. I think that's also part of what people fight for, specifically women, is fighting for that kind of equality, and because in a sense that is still an inequality with the fact of her own right even to choose keeps being questioned in the governments and even in the courts over and over and over and over and over again. If a guy doesn't, for example, if a guy has a baby, even if the baby's born, they can choose to be part of the life or not. And I mean, granted, I know someone will take them to court to get them to pay child support or whatnot, and they should. It's their kid,
of course.
Unless the woman has said or they've agreed, you don't have to be part of it or whatever. If they don't want to be part of that kind of thing, then fine, separate, go your own ways. But if that was never really the case, kind of thing, and if they wanted to have visitation or whatever, some do, whether they're together or not,
of course.
But a lot of them will still shirk paying child support. Not all. There's a lot.
No, there's a lot of good dads that step up, and
there are a lot of great dads out there, even if they're not with the mom.
Yep.
But well, isn't that kind of like, why is it so many kind of get away with that? Like,
Yeah.
I know they can take it to court, and sometimes they'll win. I don't think they win as often as people think they do. I don't know what it's like in the States, but here, because I've had a few friends who've gone through divorces, and they've had some issues that way with in courts,
of course,
too, and that they're good dads and stuff. So, but I don't know. Like, I guess I guess it should just be more equality, like with that, like whether it be controlling your own fate of whether or not you want to have an abortion or not. But when you ever see a guy, especially health-wise, have that same kind of, like, for example, I've heard this too. You might have, maybe that's the case where you live, but I know it is here. For example, say you get to be a certain age, even if you're young. Say you're in your mid-20s, maybe 30s. You don't want kids, or you've had your kids. You don't want any more kids. For whatever reason. So say a female wants to, I think it's a hysterectomy, so they don't have to have any more kids. There's a lot of doctors who will not give them that because they think they're too young. Well, it's not up to you, doctor, whether or not they want to or not. If she doesn't want to, it's her choice.
Yes.
There's no laws surrounding this here. I'll give that. And as far as I'm aware, there's never been a law that's been introduced, not like there's for anti-abortion. But it's kind of along the same lines, where I've seen so many people, Reddit, you might have too, online, seen people talk about that, specifically young women who've either had their kids and they're done, or they don't want kids at all. And they want, or even just for medical, there's people I know who've had to do it for medical reasons.
We've known a couple.
We've known a couple like that who've had to do it for medical reasons. It's like, It could have been a life or death situation, but they will not do it because they think you're going to change your mind.
Yes.
You know, even if a woman says she doesn't want to have kids, you'll hear, especially if they're young, you'll change your mind as soon as you find the right person. Well, even if you're married, you're going to change your mind. You're going to regret it. They will refuse to give them this. A guy can go, though. Tell me if I'm wrong. I haven't heard anything against it, but I've heard a guy the same age could go get a vasectomy, and they'll get it without second guessing it, because that's what the guy wants.
Yes.
I haven't heard anything different. Maybe different people had different experiences, but the people I know, because I do know a guy who had that too, because they had their kids, they didn't want
they were done.
Kids, so they were done. So no problem. But their wife at the same age, it would be a battle to
and it
get
shouldn't be.
And it shouldn't be. Exactly. It goes along with the same idea.
Yeah.
Why are you involved in their health choice?
You know,
especially when it comes to reproduction.
Exactly. If I have the ability to walk in and say, this is the procedure I want,
right,
and get it, you should be able to walk in and say, this is the procedure I want.
Right.
So,
because it was something like that. Believe me, they have thought about it.
Of course.
They've talked, they've done the research, talked to the doctors, whatever. Most of them are pretty well informed. If you're not, then of course you should be informed about it.
Of course.
Because there's no reversing it. A guy, actually, there's more of a chance of it being reversed than it is for a woman. But why are you saying no? Why are you so sad that, she's going to change her mind? You don't know that.
Don't.
I mean, usually by the time you're in your 20s, you pretty much do know whether or not you want a kitchen. I mean, you might change your mind, but then there's always adoption if you do want that. But I know it's not 100% the same. But
and that's a process in itself.
Sure, yeah.
Adoption.
Oh, yeah, and not everybody gets to adopt. But,
no.
You know. But that's kind of the problem.
Oh,
you know, and that's what we're saying. There's very inequality there with women being able to choose their own health.
Exactly.
Choices, especially with reproduction, than men do. Men can do whatever they want that way.
I think if I have the biological autonomy to say what I want to do with my body, I totally feel, and I've told you this off camera on a number of occasions, you by all means should have that.
Of course.
You know.
Yeah.
Because I can't demand you to do something when I'm not going to be the one going through the physiological changes, the hormonal upheaval, the birth.
Most women are the ones who look after the kids too.
Yeah.
Who do most of the feedings and things like that, especially if they want to breastfeed something, obviously, but.
And it's monumentally arrogant of men to say, you need to do this.
Right. Because I want it that way. Or because I believe it should be that way.
You know?
Right.
No, sorry.
Right.
Sorry. Not happening.
Right.
If you don't want children, that's your choice.
Right.
And as a loving partner, I have to respect that choice.
Right.
You know?
Which is like for either. I mean, say a wife or something wants kids or doesn't want kids. I mean, that's something you really should talk about before you get together anyway. Sure. To make sure you're on the same page. Because, I mean, that's a huge decision.
And that's a deal breaker for a lot of people.
It can be, definitely.
Yeah.
And actually, we know some people it has been a deal breaker for.
On more than one occasion.
You know, so, and I mean, that's okay. At least they knew that. So they talked about it and they knew it ahead of time. So, I mean, that's important.
Of course.
But yes, I mean, that's the thing. If I can respect you, what you want, say, okay, that's what you want. Yeah. But I can't impose what I want on you.
Yes.
Well, if that's okay, if we're that different and we can't come to a consensus, well, then maybe we can't be together because it's too different. But you put that on a government scale. Well, why is the government now saying, well, no, we don't want you to have an abortion because we think it's wrong, or no, you can't not have kids because we think it's wrong, because we think you'll change your mind anyway. You know, why are you making that decision?
Yeah, exactly.
For when they don't believe the way you do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's not right. No. It's not right.
You know, and for myself on a personal aspect, like, you know, where, like, I love kids. I'm not never hid that fact. But you have never wanted to.
No.
And
I don't hate kids. I mean,
she doesn't hate kids.
That's another misconception, I think.
Yes.
Of people who don't necessarily want their own kids. Doesn't mean they hate kids. It's just they don't want their own. That's
they don't
all.
Want their own.
You know.
And we respect each other's choice about that.
Right.
You know. And I have had some previous health issues where.
Right.
So I made a conscious decision to, okay, I would have loved to have a son or a daughter, whatever.
But you didn't even know you'd be able to.
You know. So I made that decision.
That's another thing. Yeah.
I made that decision early on, and I respected you, you know, and your position, you know, right. And I wish other people would respect you in your position on how you feel, as I respect your position.
Well, see, that's the thing is when I was younger, too. I mean, ever since I knew I didn't want kids, so that's kind of where we were going with the other, where is people who don't necessarily want kids. People assume you do.
Yeah.
As you get older, you'll change your mind. Oh. Well, I mean, I pretty much knew when I was a teenager, and if not younger, I didn't want kids. So, you know, not everybody does.
No.
And, you know, and I remember hearing myself, oh, you'll change from family, from almost anybody. You know, you'll change your mind, you'll change your mind, you'll change your mind. I never changed. I never did. Never changed my mind. No. You know, and, you know, I mean, you have to respect that. Not everybody wants to have kids.
Of course.
You know, and I don't think you should have kids if you don't really want them. Just because society thinks you should have them, because really, are you going to be that good of a parent? You might be. You might be a great parent. Not to say you don't love those kids, but some people, I mean, who don't want kids are not the best parents.
No.
Let's face it, they aren't. It's you know, but some people become great parents even if they didn't want kids. So you don't know until they're there. But
it's this whole the whole biological aspect. It's such a slippery slope.
Right.
And there's so many different permutations on this subject.
Well, see, if they start with this, what else could they go to then?
Exactly.
Right. If they're saying, no, you can't have an abortion due to whatever reason, and you could actually go to jail.
Of course.
Or no, we won't let you be able to, you know, have a hysterectomy or whatever it is, so that you can't ever have kids. You know, well, if you're controlling that, what are you going to control next?
What's the next? Yes.
In health, it's just even health-wise. That kind of thing. Would it extend to something else down the line?
You know,
I mean, what else could it extend to? You know, I mean, if you go way back in history, just how women have had to fight for things. I mean, eventually they couldn't even own property on their own. I mean, I think it was like the 1800s or so. For example, a woman owned a property, they inherited it, or they worked for it, were merchants, whatever, on their own. Once they got married, that property actually reverted to their husband's name. They didn't own it in their own right anymore. So, I mean, thankfully that's changed, you know, because it should, you know, I mean, but do some people want to go back to that? You know, like that could be an extreme, because a lot of people would not want to go back to that. No. And hopefully they wouldn't. But it's kind of along those lines. If you're controlling this, what else would you want to try to control?
Well, that's it.
You know?
If you want, like you said, if you're wanting to dip your toe into that murky water, where else are you going to go?
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
And like we said, guys, this is it's a really polarizing subject. And
I mean, we've seen like really nasty discussion on both sides, but you know, I mean, I think again, it kind of leads to really with any kind of controversial topic, whether it be politics, religion, anti-abortion, pro-abortion, and they're very polarizing topics because people feel so strongly about them. But I mean, I think why we felt to talk about it is because we can see both sides of it.
Of course.
You know, we're more on the choice. It should be their own choice to pick. But we respect if you believe it's religious reasons or whatever, well, that's also a choice. Yes. So that's the whole pro-choice thing anyway. I'm not anti-life.
No.
Or really even pro-abortion. It's just it's pro-choice, what's best for that individual.
Exactly.
So if you believe strongly, religious based or whatnot, then I think you should have the right,
of course,
for your beliefs, and if that's what you want, then that's fine.
Exactly.
But I also think if someone, you know, because of a health issue or whatever, they should also have the choice to choose. The option to choose. Do I agree with, say, like we were talking about earlier, selective, because you don't like the gender? No, I don't agree with that. No. Of course not. But again, that's their choice, right? They have the right. They should have the right. Do I like it? No, of course, but it's not me. It's not my choice. I'm not the one raising the kid or anything like that. So it's not up to me to choose for them. It's up to them to choose.
Exactly. And that I agree. I think what I would love to see eventually is both sides of this discussion. Set the ideologies aside. Set the venom.
I don't know if you could set your ideology aside, because that's really the crux of the problem.
But in a sense, I think you're going to have to if you're really going to listen to somebody.
Well, if you set your own ideology aside, then you would be pro-choice.
But I mean in the sense of, if I'm really going to hear you, I have to set that
and just listen.
And just listen. You know, take all the weapons or verbal weapons you're wanting to use in this topic, and set it aside and just listen to what they're saying.
I think you don't necessarily have to agree with everything people say, because people are not going to agree with everything you say, and I mean that's okay. Like, people are different, you know. It's not a bad thing to disagree. I don't think I think how you disagree. I think it's
exactly
if you really kind of devolve into name calling, and that you're this, you're a killer, or whatever, you know. I mean, you've heard a lot of different names people call each other because they don't agree with even political aspects. Well, then nobody's going to listen to each other at all. I mean, you even say you have an argument with people in your family, once you start name calling, nobody's listening to you anymore. No. That's it. They shut their mind to you, and then they just get angry and they just attack back. Yeah. So you're not actually listening to what the other person's saying anymore.
Well, like,
you know,
last week,
the message actually gets lost.
Last week we had a gentleman on the show.
Yeah.
And
a guest
on
chatting with us.
Chatting with us, and
it was a good chat.
It was a very good chat. We both took our ideologies, set them aside, because we just asked questions. Why do you feel this way?
Right.
Because I want to understand. She wants to understand. And there was an exchange of thoughts and
discussion. Yes.
Discussion.
I mean, do we always agree? No. About everything, and I'm sure he didn't agree with everything we said, and that's okay. You know, because I don't think you have to agree with everything everybody says.
Hell, we don't even agree sometimes.
We said that even in the last week. We don't always agree with each other, and that's okay. You know, but we're not going to say, oh, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that, because you don't agree with me.
I'm a this and that, huh?
Well, you know what I mean.
Okay.
You know, you've heard the names people call each other.
That's true.
You know, especially in the political. I'm sure if you've been on Facebook, you've seen them.
Yes.
You know, but you know, it doesn't it doesn't help your argument.
No.
Because that's all people are going to see now.
Of course.
Is this name calling, and the message gets lost. I mean, whether or not you ever believe it, what they say, I guess it's not overly the point, because you have the right to believe whatever you want to believe. You know?
You did that person the dignity
of
to listen.
Right. Because then you can understand each other better, too. And it makes for much better conversation.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
And I mean,
because actions, they're like, we're neither really right or left. Like, we don't, political wise, we're not liberal nor conservative, which would be Republican or Democrat in the States. We're more centralist kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because we think you can gain things from both sides. There's good things on both sides.
Of course.
Kind of thing. I mean, then you get like the far to either side, and I mean that's not necessarily good either.
No.
But so I mean that's why we like actually talking. We actually have a lot of friends on both sides of the spectrum.
Oh, for sure.
Actually, and because we can have good conversations
of
with them,
course.
because like we can say we agree with, like with the gentleman we talked last week, we agreed with quite a bit that he said.
Yeah.
And and then other things we didn't necessarily agree with, but that's okay too. You know, we didn't think he was lesser because he didn't agree with us. You know, he has a right to what he thinks, and we do too.
Yeah,
I mean, that's okay.
And he appreciated our stance.
Yeah, and we appreciated his.
And he understood what we are trying to do on this show is to create
talk about that.
And to create a safe platform for people to talk and to listen.
Right. Without the name calling.
And without the judgments. And, and sometimes that's what people have forgotten to do.
Oh, yeah. I think especially now.
And now, exactly.
Especially now.
Now, with all the real polarizing conversations, misinformation, all that going on. Is anyone really listening anymore?
I don't know. Or if they are, see, that's the thing. They may think they're listening, but are they actually hearing what the other person's saying? I mean, I actually have seen, and it's refreshing to see conversations from people who are really on opposite sides of the spectrum on that particular topic.
Yes.
And actually not devolve to name calling
it's intelligent.
Or calling them dumb or anything. Yeah. They listen. Yeah. They don't necessarily agree with everything, but they talk. And they have a really good conversation. Yeah. And they understand why that person thinks the way they do. And and they have a good chat. I mean, that's really what's missing. It's not really about the fact that you believe this way, you believe this way. That's not the problem. It's the problem is because, you think, oh, well, you're never going to listen to me, you're dumb because you think this way.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's just that's what they think.
Yeah.
Just make them dumb.
No, it
just makes, that's what they think. That's what they believe, So that's all. And they have the right to it.
And we want to thank you guys for listening to what we had to say on it.
This is an important conversation. I mean, here, like we said, it doesn't affect us personally, but it could. I mean, that's kind of the point. It's kind of unlikely that this topic will be kind of like legally reopened again, but you never know. No. I mean, nothing's really assured, but I know it does affect a lot of states because a lot of states, there are bills like this going through readings. So, I mean, if it's something that you're against, then it might be something you want to talk to your governor or local or state officials about,
Because things won't change unless you make the active movement to change it in a positive way.
Right.
And I think that's what we as a society have forgotten, how to make positive change on these topics.
And I mean, they can be changed for the better.
Of course.
I mean, it can be good. But, it doesn't have to be the way it is.
No. And like the great Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes, it's true. And that's personally what we want to do here, to show that it doesn't have to be, you don't have to, you can have varying sides. It could be both sides of the spectrum can come together and talk about things without it become a big shouting match,
of course,
or not listening or anything like that. To find a way to change that whole narrative that we see far too often, especially on social media, and I'm sure you have seen it too. It's disheartening to see that. You want to hear everybody's viewpoint, and everybody's viewpoint's valid.
Of course.
So, and I mean, we learn different things.
Of course.
And hopefully you do too.
Of course.
As long as you remain open to hearing it.
And
no, you don't have to believe everything everybody says. We don't, of course not. But at least listen to what they have to say, and then don't say whatever.
But I will say, like, if you give me enough information that piques my interest,
I will research.
I will look it up. Definitely. I will look into it, because.
But that's, I think, what because.
You have shown that you have done the work yourself to present that and say, okay, well, look at this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Okay, now let me look at this. And let me come back to you and.
Well, like, you see this a lot, as people will say, do your research, look this up, or whatever, and they won't necessarily give you where they're looking.
Yes.
They say do your own research, but there's a lot of misinformation out there too. So, what I like is when they actually do. Some people we have talked to have said, we'll look at this person and see what you think. Or whatever, and so, okay, we will. And then we'll say, well, you look up this person, because we don't just depend on, I know a lot of people are very down on the media. I don't just do, research and stuff with media. So, like, I tend to watch, global news, like all over the world, as well as reading it, as well as, other, like, actual medical sites, or whatever the case is. That
discussion groups and
so I mean, it gives you a much, much broader view of really what's going on in the world, rather than just one particular thing here and there. So that's how I do it anyway. But that's what I like. And like you talked about, is if you know of, we like looking at legitimate sites that are legitimate.
Yes.
Then that's fine. We'll look at it.
Yeah.
Again, we may or may not agree with it. That's fine. Or we might learn something.
Exactly.
What's important.
Exactly. If you think we should look at it, please
send us a link.
Send us a link. Because the only way we change things or learn things is if we can actually do the research ourselves as well.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It has to be open-minded.
Yes.
To new ideas.
Of course.
There might be stuff we've not even heard of before, or you might have, or maybe we've given you information you might not have heard of before, regardless of like what side or whatever it comes from. I mean, we're open to hearing it. So I guess that's the only way you can make real change, though.
Exactly. So this has been a really great conversation with you. And thank you so much for delving into this. And guys, thank you so much for letting us come into your little piece of cyberspace.
And spending your Sunday night with us.
And spending your Sunday.
Whenever you watch this.
Exactly. But do know, like, we do want to hear your opinion. We do want to hear what you have to say about this. And let's start a conversation.
Yeah, as long as we can keep conversations respectful and respect our opinion, respect your opinion, and whoever else wants to leave an opinion, then we want to hear it.
Yes. And so, guys, we're gonna let you go for the evening. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me.
Always, you're my co-host and partner in crime in all this. And guys, if you enjoyed the show, please give it a thumbs up. hit the subscribe button so you'll know whenever we do an extended episode. And please leave us a comment below.
Don't forget to hit the notification bell.
Oh, yes.
So you know when to go live.
Exactly.
Or when he uploads a regular podcast, which you can also listen to on YouTube.
It's in our playlist. So please, guys, check us out. Give us a comment. Let us know what you think. Or give us a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you'd like us to discuss next week.
We're open to topics.
We'll talk about anything. Have a safe week, guys. And we'll talk to you next week.
Bye. Guys.